Welcome to the Black Girl Tale podcast, where we talk about changing unavailable relationship patterns, healing unresolved trauma, and building a healthy relationship with first you and then others. Every episode, we will talk about actionable advice that you can apply today to break unhealthy patterns and grow your self-worth. I'm Sheena Tubbs. Let's begin. Hello, ladies, and welcome to the latest episode of Black Girls Heal. So today's episode, I have such a great one for you. Today, I know that we have had student highlights in the past where we were able to celebrate the accomplishments and growth of my amazing coachees and talk about their experience. But today I have our first featured expert on the podcast, and it is Kourtney Dubois, who is an amazing relationship coach, and she is actually going to be one of the bonus workshop presenters at our self-love intensive that is currently underway. We have started our month of connecting, of getting ready for our workshops and getting to know each other. So that's super exciting. This first month here in August, we are setting the stage. So those of you who are familiar with how I coach women is I give you all of the tools that I'm going to keep circling back to at the beginning. Why? Because whenever you are going on a journey, whenever you're going on a trip, you have to take your supplies with you. A lot of times we don't make progress like we want to because we just say, well, I just want to change because I just want things to be better. I have a vision, maybe even for what I want it to be, but you don't have tools that are going to help you overcome the mindset blocks, the roadblocks along the way. So August, we're taking this month to set that stage. One of the first things I'm teaching our self-love intensive attendees is about overcoming self-sabotage and where that comes from, but how that looks in relation to our trauma. Because what I love about this day and age is that there's so much great information out there about why we do the things that we do. But as you may have heard me talk about in this podcast, there are very few, if any, that actually connect the dots, that can actually say, okay, here's a really good tip for you to know, and this is exactly how it's related to your trauma, and then this is what you do about it. So we're bringing it full circle to make sure women are set up for success, that they're actually able to get better. And then I'm going to teach my ladies, you, all of you listening who register, who are going to be registered, I'm teaching you one of the tools that I teach in my main program that is going to be so important for you to know how to do for yourself when it comes to self-love and rewriting the scripts that you have in your head that keep you stuck, and learning how to be connected to yourself. Even when you don't want to be, even when you're scared to go there, even when you wonder if you can ever get to a place where you can actually like you, be kind to you, or not have to operate in perfectionism for you to be able to tolerate yourself, right? That's also what we're going to be talking about. And then Kourtney's going to be coaching. I'm just really excited to start with talking about self-sabotage because I know so many of us don't trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves to actually follow through with our commitments, to say no to ourselves, to say yes to ourselves. And so to be able to understand the parts of us that do that and why, so that we can build compassion around it, so that we can actually not pick and choose parts that we think are lovable and the parts that aren't, just like what happened to us before, is so important. And it makes it so much easier to actually move into self-forgiveness, which is what helps us move forward, which is what helps us put in the past the things that happened, all the ways that we felt like we might have failed or let ourselves down. Now we can actually do something about it. And it doesn't involve us having to go back in time to make it different, right? We can start today and not feel like there's a gap missing because we're stuck in the what ifs, right? So I'm so excited to be teaching about that. But I decided that I wanted to have some of our bonus presenters here on the podcast because they are just such amazing resources for all things self love, healing, healthy relationships, and connection. And so, for the women who are already registered for the intensive, I wanted you to be able to have an introduction to these women, to get to know them, for you to get even more excited. For those of you who have not registered yet for the intensive or you're still thinking about it, I wanted you to have access to the mighty wisdom and knowledge of these ladies. And so, Kourtney is such a treasure. She is gifted at what she does, and she is a fountain of wisdom who is truly genuine, warm, authentic. She's one of those people that immediately makes you feel like y'all are best friends and that you've known each other forever, and that she gets it and she's going to be able to help you get through it, right? So, um, that is going to be our episode today. She's going to be talking about the 4 communication styles, because, couples is her specialty. But whether or not you are partnered, don't want to be partnered, soon to be partnered, this is going to be so helpful because we're getting into trauma, how it manifests and how we speak to other people, how we show up, and what to do whenever we are triggered. So, without further ado, here is our interview with Kourtney Dubois. All right, so I have Kourtney Dubois with us on the podcast today. Hey, Kourtney.
Hey, Sheena. Hi, tribe. How's everybody doing?
I am so excited to have you here. I don't know if you know this, but you are my first official podcast guest.
Oh my gosh, no pressure.
No pressure.
Oh, I'm
No
so
pressure.
honored. Thank you, Sheena.
Yes.
Oh.
I think our audience is really going to enjoy this. You are such a gifted relationship coach. I really love your programming and how you teach and how relatable it is, and how you're really helping people. So, and I know here we're all about building healthy relationships and learning how to communicate. So,
Love
this
it. Love
conversation
it.
is going to be great.
Yes, I can't wait. This is going to be good and juicy.
Yep. So before we start, I already mentioned your relationship coach, but could you tell us a little bit more about you?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm Kourtney Dubois. Hello, everyone. I am a Black millennial relationship coach. So I help dating and married couples kind of identify what's going on in their relationship, identify maybe some problems or some low points that they may be having so that we can figure out how to communicate around those issues and set them up for success inside of their partnership. I typically work with couples who are either at that phase in dating where they know they want to get married, but they may not be engaged just yet. Or they're already, married and have been married for quite some time, or newlyweds, and they're just really trying to figure it out. I absolutely love my couples. We get down to the nitty gritty, and I can't wait to share some of the stuff that we talk about. Definitely communication wise, because that's a big one. That's a big part of my platform, and something I wholly believe if we can get our communication together, we can really solve a lot of our relationship issues.
Yep. And this is totally related to Black women, Black girls healing, because so much of who we are shows up in our relationships and our partnerships.
Absolutely.
And once we get through our own internal walls and blocks, just in relationship with ourselves, with our trauma, inviting another person to be a part of building a life together will trigger even more stuff. And
absolutely,
the women who I speak to, a lot of my audience members struggle with the fantasy that if/when I get married or I find a partner or partners, then everything will be great and I just have to find the right one. When really, that's where a lot of the real work starts. Joy,
absolutely.
but real work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I absolutely love your platform, because after women are working with you, what I know from you and what I see from all the comments that you're always getting in your work, on Instagram or in the podcast comments, women are able to identify their ish, right? So if I can figure out my stuff, I can figure out how I can communicate to my partner what my stuff is, right? That
Mhm.
way we're open about it, we're honest about it, and we can figure out, okay, how do I deal with my stuff, and how do we deal with your stuff, so that we are able to move forward and package these things that we need to package and put away into a appropriate little box where we know how to handle them, and tuck them to where they need to be, so that we can be successful in the other areas of our relationship. But I absolutely love that, because when you can identify your trauma and your triggers, you're able to easily be able to communicate, well, I'm feeling something, I need you to slow down. And that's where it all starts. That is the beginning of that communication piece that is so critical, that so many people miss.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Yeah. So, girl, let's jump right in then. Let's talk about
Yeah.
these conflict styles. Tell us more about it.
Yeah. So, one of the main programs that I have, that I'm always talking to my couples about, is conflict resolution, having that communication resolution, and it's because communication is often, where we trick ourselves up in these relationships. And I'll be a little transparent about myself, Sheena. You know, I've been married for, quite some time. I've been with my husband for almost 10 years. Well, a little bit over 10 years. We met in undergrad, and early on in our relationship, we used to get into like these little nitpicky, like, you get on my nerves about this, or I can't stand when you do this. But we never came to a resolution, in how we went about having those conversations and how to solve the actual issue at hand. As we went through some of that, eventually, years years later than we should have, but years later, we developed the tools to figure out how to communicate, to be able to hear one another. And what we found was we each had different communication styles. And one of the portions of my platform talks about 4 different types of communication styles. So if you don't mind, can I share them with you?
Yes, please.
All right. So there are 4 of them. One is the avoider. The avoider is someone who, you may know this person, by any means necessary, they will avoid having those heated conversations. They won't call you back. When you say what's wrong with you, they're just like nothing. And then they walk out the room because they don't want to engage. They don't want to have the conversation at all. Then you have the competitor. The competitor, in their communication style, they may often like raise their voice, or they may, get very frustrated if you don't see their side of the story. They can often feel like, someone who can be maybe a little bit aggressive and trying to debate, go back and forth. Okay, so that's the competitor. Then you have the passive aggressor. Now, I'll be transparent again. I used to be this personality type here in my
Hmm.
communication. I
Hmm.
was the passive aggressor. So the passive aggressor is very like nonverbal when it comes to like some of their communication. So I may say like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. I don't mind if you don't take the trash out for the 10,000th time. I'll do it. Don't worry about it." And then I go take out the trash. But really in my head, I'm like, "Did take out the trash again?"
Hmm. Hmm.
That's kind of how the passive aggressor is. You say everything is okay. You may look like everything is okay on the outside, but really on the inside, you're not sharing your true feelings, and you're not advocating for yourself the way that you really should be. Okay. And then finally, the collaborator. Now, the collaborator is the 4th style. And this communication style is really what we want both couples to operate in at all times, because this is like the nirvana of communication. When you're collaborating in conversation, you're looking for solution based words, solution based revolution, to be able to get to fixing whatever the issue is in that conversation. So you're looking at the problem, not looking at the person, and you're fixing that. Does that make sense?
Yes, they
All
all
right. Okay.
make sense.
Okay, good. So the avoider, the competitor, the passive aggressor, and the collaborator.
Yeah. Yeah. No comment on which one I am, but that's
Look, sometimes we can be a little bit of all the above, and
right.
then
Right.
sometimes you'll notice that one really sticks out, a little
Hmm.
more.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely one that that's when I'm getting to that point. I'm like, okay, I need to step back,
Yeah,
take a
yeah,
time out because.
yeah, yes. And it's so good that you recognize that, because so many times what happens when we engage in arguments, that trauma that we're feeling immediately pulls up our defense mechanisms. We don't take a step back because that fight or flight immediately kicks in, and it's like, okay, either I'm running full speed ahead and you're gonna catch these hands, or I'm running away, in the opposite direction, and I'm doing the flight. I'm going absolutely the opposite direction. I'm avoiding this issue. So when you said that, take a moment, breathe deeply, and really say, oh, let me recognize I'm really about to say something I don't mean. That's the biggest piece. That's the biggest part of it all. Being able to recognize that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the phrases that I'll say here on the podcast, and I'll say to my students, is if it's hysterical, it's historical. If
Oh
I
yeah.
get to level 1000, or if
Mm-hmm.
I get to level 100, then that's because this is about something deeper that has nothing to do with you. But I'm
Yeah.
projecting it onto you because I've just been triggered. And no matter what
Mm-hmm.
you tell me, it's not really going to help me feel better. So I need to be aware of that and
Yeah.
also know how to communicate that to you. So we're getting to the actual root of why I'm
Yeah.
upset.
I love that. If it's hysterical, it's historical. I
Mhm.
love that. That's right on point. You're absolutely right on that.
Yep. So if we are listening to this and there is a communication style that is not the collaborator that
Mm-hmm.
we relate to the most, how do we get to be more of the collaborator style?
Oh yes. So 9 times out of 10, we're not we're not gonna be the collaborator.
Really?
So
There's
this would
nobody perfect listening to this right now?
No,
No.
oftentimes we may think
Yeah.
it's so funny too, because sometimes we'll be in session and the guy or the girl really will be like, oh yeah, I'm totally the collaborator. They'll take the quiz and they showed up as the collaborator, and then their partner's like, no, you're more of the avoider. You never talk to me about these things.
Mhm.
So it's funny that folks say that, oh, there's no one that's really no. Oftentimes we're not the collaborator. But in order to get to that place, you really, like you said, you have to identify those places. Where am I being hysterical? What am I being triggered by? And you have to be honest about those things. One thing that I notice, a lot of times we don't know how to say how we feel. So, an example. I can be very frustrated because, say, my partner wants to go out to the club. Now, granted, in the pandemic, we should all be home wearing our masks.
Mhm.
But granted, outside of that, this crazy time we're going through right now, if my partner wants to go out a lot and I don't, well, if my previous, childhood trauma comes from my father going out being drunk, coming home and, being inappropriate with me or my mom, or, gambling his money away and coming back and not having anything, and him and my mom having arguments, that for me, when my boyfriend now decides that he wants to go out, he may never have exhibited any of those behaviors. But because I don't know how to communicate my feelings and express, hey, this is making me feel sort of triggered because this is how my dad used to do, and I know you're not my dad, but this is just bringing up these emotions for me. We don't want to share those feelings. We don't know how to share those feelings, and we don't want to be honest about those places that someone else's behavior can take us. And that is what usually keeps us from being the collaborator. Being able to find those words, being honest about it, and being open to your partner about it is really the key things that keep us from being able to move forward successfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about that and just bring together all the stuff we've talked about so far. I just think about the importance of knowing your ish, knowing the root
Yes.
causes of why these things matter. Because what I make up about the example you gave of the guy who's like, yeah, I'm totally a collaborator, but is really an avoidant, is he is so
Mm-hmm.
used to minimizing and compartmentalizing his emotions instead of dealing with them, and thinking that that is
Absolutely.
actual peace versus the fact that I don't know how to face it, so I push it down. So when I get into these fights, I just choose not to go there. So I've never actually healed from my stuff. It's just down
Yes.
there underneath. And it's actually causing
Yes.
me to move further away from a person that wants to be there for me. They never get to know me.
Exactly.
They never get to connect to me because it's too hard. It's too scary. And I don't even know
Yeah.
that. I don't even
Yeah.
have words for it.
Yeah. And then the partner, it robs your partner of knowing who you really and truly are, which is the total opposite of what the collaborator is. But
Mm-hmm.
so many people do that. So many people pack that away and pack away the trauma and pack away the feelings. Because honestly, where in life are we able to say, this is how I honestly feel, and not think that we're going to be judged or ridiculed or condemned for it? So it's
Mm-hmm.
common. It's common that we all do this. We just tuck it away.
Yeah. To be in love and to let someone love you and to love somebody else is so amazing and
Mm-hmm.
terrifying at the
Yes.
same time.
Yes. Yes.
Especially at the beginning, if you're someone who has unresolved trauma and you're learning how to trust along the way, like you're learning to get your sea legs, you're learning to walk, and it's like, can I trust that the floor is not going to give out from underneath me with every
Right.
step?
Or can I trust that this partner of mine isn't going to think it's funny to push me over and
Mm,
then say that they're going to help me up, or not
right,
help me up and just leave me down there? there's so
right,
many
right.
there's just so many unknowns. And I think that's the hardest part about love, right? It takes, they always say, oh, a fool falls in love, but it takes a very brave person to be open and willing and say, you know what, I could get hurt. This might not go the way that I want it to go. This may end up being a lesson instead of a quote unquote blessing.
Mm,
But I'm gonna do it anyways.
yeah.
And there's always a blessing in the lesson. So I think being willing to be open for love, and showing someone that part of you, that's the bravest thing you can do.
Mm, mm. Well, Coach Kourtney, how do I get there?
Well, first we gotta get with Machina Tubbs over here so we can heal individually first. Let's not bypass step one.
Yeah.
You like you said, own your ish, own your own stuff, because when you identify those things, you know what you're bringing into the relationship, right? So
Yeah.
no one can put anything on you that you don't already have packed up in your bags. So that's key.
Mhm.
When you know what you're bringing and you can put a name on it and you can touch it and you can sit in it and you can feel it, it makes it a lot easier, for me to then come in and say, okay, well, let's talk about how does that look? What does that look like in relationship? Okay, let's
Mhm.
identify on the partner side, on his side, how does that make him feel? Because he's bringing his own stuff too, right?
Right.
So to get to that place where you do decide, okay, yeah, let's love one another, let's be monogamous, let's try to make this a purpose-filled partnership where we're walking towards marriage, or just being true to one another. You have to be able to communicate exactly what it is that you're feeling. So
Mhm.
many times my couples come to me and they're in the middle of an argument, and they tell me something like, oh, we're arguing because he never helps me cook or clean around the house, or she always has an attitude. There are these high level BS is what I call it. That's
Mhm.
not the real issue. That's crap.
Mhm.
The underlying issue is being able to say, well, how does that make you feel when she has an attitude? And it is rare that you will get the guy that can say, actually, when she has an attitude, it makes me feel like she doesn't want me. It makes me feel like, you know, she doesn't find me attractive. It makes me feel like less than the man. we don't know how to find those words. He's just saying, oh, I'm mad. It pisses me off. But really under that, and being able to find what those emotions are under our surface level words, and being able to relate that back to how we're feeling in our relationship and what that translates into. Well, she got an attitude all the time, so we can never have sex. Now we can kind of begin to unpack. He perceives you as having attitude all the time, but really for you, it's your defense mechanism, because now maybe you're having an attitude because you feel like he doesn't care. At the end of the day, oftentimes it's, I want this person to make me feel safe. So I want to be able to trust this person, and I want to be able to be free with this person. That at the end of the day, that is honestly what everybody's core values and wants and desires are, to be able to feel safe with the person that they're with, honestly.
Right. To not be abandoned or rejected. Right?
Yes. And all of our little nonverbal and verbal cues that we throw out there, that protect.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Protects, me having, I got myself, you ain't gotta have me. That protects that. Really.
Right. Yeah. It's funny, my ladies will reach out to me like on social media and emails and stuff. And because they listen, they'll say, Sheena, I am a self-diagnosed cutoff queen. That's the term that I use.
The cutoff queen. Yes.
Bomb at cutting people off. You get cut off.
I love it. But really, who are they cutting off? Themselves. You're cutting yourself off, baby girl. You're cutting you off. You are now creating a whole, you got you a nice Donald Trump wall that you done built with these bricks by cutting other people off. You've cut them off because you're afraid to allow yourself to be open. Once you know your trauma, once you can identify what your stuff is, that's when you're most empowered. That's when you can say, oh, I can be open and I can tell this person about how I'm feeling, because I own what I'm bringing and you can't give me anything extra. But we also have to be able to identify, and when I'm being triggered, recognizing the difference between, is this person triggering me on purpose? Or do they just not understand, how this is affecting me? And I think so many times, especially us millennials, we get to this, we're a very interesting generation here. We've gotten to this place in relationship. Like I said, I'm a Black millennial relationship coach. So amongst our community, I can only speak to us because that's who I'm concerned with, where we just want to be so hard. I don't know if it was the 90s gangster rap. We were all in elementary school, like, oh yeah, F the police. I don't know what has gotten us to this point, but we want to be so independent and so work driven and so I got me, that it's easy to say, if this person does one thing, I'm cutting them off. If this person does not adhere to this one rule all the time, I'm cutting them off. And really, it's not you cutting them off. It's you cutting yourself off from the other possibilities that could really be out there because they didn't follow one rule. Whereas what we really know about love is that it's unconditional, that it's grace, that it's mercy, that it's you extending the same treatment to someone else that you would want them to give to you. And so many times in relationship, we don't give our partner that grace or that mercy to be able to mess up sometimes. We want perfect partners, and that's just not realistic because we're not perfect. So I get it. I understand the cutoff queen. I understand it, but you're cutting yourself off and you're not allowing yourself to be open for love. And I'm not saying let anybody run over you but there's a difference between a guy purposely hurting you, triggering you, and you have to be able to decipher and discern, is that what this really is? Or am I not open and willing to work through this to get him to where we both need to be, so this isn't an issue in our relationship.
Right. That is the perfect point for my next question, because I teach and I target my podcast for women who are consistently attracted to unavailable people. So we try to make someone who is not a good fit a good fit. And we may actually tend to over communicate with them. So we may try to be a collaborator with someone who's an avoidant, but not an avoidant who wants to heal, but an avoidant that we just know if we do it enough that he or she will change their mind and they will pivot, right? And so what can you say to those of us who are not in partnership with someone who's healthy or wants to be healthy, but we are with someone who's not going to change and we're trying to make it happen?
Well, see, that's when you become the cutoff queen. So that's why I say you have to be able to discern what exactly is it, right? What is this relationship? When you know your ish and you approach a situation with a partner, that is when you have to identify together what the goals of that relationship are, right? So we just shooting the shit and this is just gonna be some type of sexual thing. That's one thing. That's over there. But if that's not something that you're interested in, you have to talk about that. You have to make it plain. Well, hey, and I don't know why people always say this, but yes, be honest on that first date. I am looking for a serious relationship. And be honest about how you feel. And when the guy says, oh yeah, no, I don't know about that right now, believe him. Many times we don't believe people at their word. And this is one thing that I always say, and let me make sure I get it right. Women believe with their eyes and men believe with their ears. So not all the time, okay, don't hold me this isn't 100% true, but this is often how we act in a relationship. A woman and a man may say, oh yeah, this isn't going to be anything serious. A man is going to take that woman at her word. She said, so I'm believing with my ears that she's not interested in a relationship. But the woman will believe with the eyes. He's over here every day. I'm cooking for him. He's got me around his friends. Oh yeah, he must want to wife me up. No. Yeah. That man told you. He told you he was not interested in that. You have to take him at his word. And I think that's something that we can often get kind of caught up in. We have to believe people for what they say, and having those conversations to just say, hey, I'm really interested in having, a meaningful relationship. That's just where I am in my life. And if they get with it, great. If they don't, that's when you keep it moving. But if they're saying, I'm trying to keep it light, then girl, keep it moving.
Right. Yeah. Or if they say, I just can't give you what you need right now, but they're still coming over, we might take that as, well, look at him being emotionally available and communicating his feelings to me.
Exactly. I'm going to change him. He don't want to be with me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think bringing it back to self-love and connection is more about like these guys or these women or whoever you're dating, they're just symptoms of a deeper problem. The real thing is to look at what is it in me that will allow myself to stay around for someone who cannot meet me where I am. What is it in me that feels comfortable being second priority or third or fourth or fifth or being hidden or whatever it might be. Right. Because if not, you can cut off this person, but you're going to keep repeating it in other situations, or be in a healthy relationship or be with someone who's healthy and not know how to receive that love and live in one of those three communication styles.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you end up self-sabotaging that relationship and the ones thereafter.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And isn't that a part of our trauma cycle, right? We continue to pick the wrong guy. That's a part of our trauma cycle. Our trauma could be anywhere from my parents weren't around and they just, I was always second because they were working. So that can be a part of that trauma story, picking that same guy over and over, as well as I'm insecure. I'm not able to believe that I deserve something great. So when you meet that good guy, you
Mm.
self-sabotage.
Mm.
That's a part of our trauma. So you have to recognize those things in yourself before engaging, in relationship.
Yeah. Recognize
Mm-hmm.
and heal. Because I think a
Yes.
lot of women, people in general, but women stop short of saying, well, I know what my problem is, so I'm just going to think positively. I'm just going to do different. And you've known what your issue is supposedly for so
Mm-hmm.
long, and nothing has changed. Like
You're
there's a
absolutely
place
right.
further you have to go.
Yep. Garnering those tools that you learn from a professional on
Yeah.
how to heal, on how to address those things within you, that is key. And until you garner those tools to be armed to handle whatever you're at battle with, you won't be able to. It's not enough to just identify it. You have to have the tools to be able to tackle it. You're
Right.
absolutely right.
So speaking of professional support, let's talk about the difference between relationship therapy and relationship coaching, which is what you do. So
Yeah.
when would someone know, or how would they know who they need to go to? What's the difference between the two?
Absolutely. So, I am actually a counselor. I have been trained as a counselor, but I chose to go into the coaching route because I want to work with couples who are ready to move forward. So oftentimes we get into any type of counseling, really, and they start from the beginning. So they want to know about your childhood, and they want to know about those deeper rooted issues and what makes us us. Coaching and on my platform, when you come to me, my expectation is that you are ready to move beyond those childhood things. Now, obviously, they may come up as we're moving forward, but we're not going to go back and take a deep look into some of those deep rooted issues. We are going to start from where we are today. We're going to pick up tools to be able to tackle these issues, and we're going to make a concrete plan on how to move forward. Oftentimes in the counseling room, you may kind of have a lightly guided session where your counselor is allowing you to have most of the control over the conversation. Obviously, they're going to be pushing you in certain directions so that you can have that self-discovery. In coaching, there are certain tools and a structure that we're going to go by in a certain amount of time to be able to get to a final destination, and whatever that is, that's that agreed upon goal between the coach and the clients, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the difference for what I'm doing. Obviously, because I can definitely identify rather quickly when there needs to be a lot of that healing, I'll refer a partner, either the man or the woman, out and say, hey, I really think you should look into some counseling and do some individual discovery with a counselor, just depending on what they have going on. So, but
Yeah.
they're both great. They're both great. I love both worlds and being able to help people on either side of the fence. But I love coaching because we can say, okay, this is the issue. This is how we're going to get to the finish line. And we can specifically measure, this is by when we want to get to that finish line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add to that, because it sounds like your method is similar to mine as far as what our focus is, we
Mm-hmm.
start off with what the vision is. What is it that we're
Yes.
building towards
Yes.
versus let's
Absolutely.
just sit and chat and see what happens,
Yes,
you
that
know?
is step one. That is the first homework assignment for all of my programs, all of my clients. It's literally called communicating the vision, because I need you to communicate to me what the vision is so we
Yeah.
can all work together to make sure that this is right. And it's a homework assignment that allows the partners to come together and really have those conversations, because you'd be surprised how many people end up in relationship, and I'm guilty of this. How many times do you end up in a relationship with someone and it's been some time, couple of months, 4 or 5 months may go by, and it's just like, oh yeah, we still just shooting the shit. Well, where is this going? What are our plans? And then that's when you get into that territory where you find yourself frustrated because you're like, well, it's 3 years in and I thought I would have had a ring by now. Well, girl, did you ever tell him you wanted to get married?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, vision planning is the communication of that vision is number one.
Yeah. And even for couples who are married, what I would imagine is, there's an unspoken rule that people have when they get into relationships where I'm getting in this relationship with you because I like how you take care of me. So
Mm-hmm.
your job is to take care of me the way I like for the rest of my life. And when that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen anymore, that's
And the
when,
quarantine comes and the pandemic comes and they lose their job. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And
Yep.
not even just financially, even emotionally. I want
Oh
to feel
yes.
a certain way with you, but it's more me focused, it's
Yes.
more self focused. And even though
Yes.
feeling cherished and loved is definitely part of being in a relationship, it can't be all of it. And so
Right.
what I would imagine is when they're with you is building a purpose outside of just me being seen and valued. But what are we building
Absolutely.
together?
Absolutely. A large part, and you'll hear me say purpose-filled partnership a
Mhm.
lot, because I honestly and truly believe if you're going to be in a relationship and the ultimate goal is marriage, well, what does that look like for you? Is that a Christian marriage? Does that mean you're being selfless with one another? Does that mean, like, what exactly is the purpose of this relationship, of you being partnered together? Is that a lifelong commitment? Like, and being able to say exactly what that is will allow both people to feel more invested in what it is that they're doing. So now it's not all about my feelings and how do you make me feel. Now it's, oh wow, am I making you feel secure as well? You know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
Are we stacking racks and building black wealth? Like what is the purpose,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. All the above.
All of that. Awesome. So what more about communication styles or conflict styles do you think is important for us to know?
Yes, well, I definitely want everybody to check out the communication style quiz. I think the first thing you have to do is really identify which communication style you are. Because once you kind of get an idea of which one you are, you're able to build from there. If you go to my website, it's coachmecourtney.com. You'll be able to find the quiz on there, and it's Courtney with a K. Take that quiz and get an idea of what resonates most with you, and be open and honest on that quiz so that you can really get a good indicator of how do I respond in times of conflict? How am I communicating? And answer those questions to the best of your ability. Then you'll be able to say, okay, this is really my results. This is really my communication style. I think being able to do that is key, and step one to be able to do anything. Then be open and honest and say, okay, are these some things that I really may need to work on? How has this affected my previous relationships? Have I been passive aggressive? Have I been avoiding? How has that affected the success of me staying with the person that I was with? You know, and being honest about the results that you continue to get in those relationships, because oftentimes we'll see patterns and we'll ignore the pattern and we'll keep saying, oh yeah, I had to cut them off because of X, Y, and Z. But really, was that them, or was there a pattern in how you were communicating or not communicating how you were feeling about certain issues? I think that's key. That's step number one, and the biggest takeaway. Identifying what's going on with you first.
Mm-hmm. Yep, doing that good
Yeah.
old assessment. I like it. I love it. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney, this has been so great.
Yes, I've loved it. Look, we need to do this more
I
often.
know. I knew it would be. So if y'all enjoyed this episode as much as I have, Courtney is actually going to be one of our workshop presenters at the Self-Love Intensive that is
Yes.
rolling. Yes. And she's going to be talking more about building that self-love while you're in partnership or even before you get into partnership so that you do not
Mm-hmm.
lose yourself.
Yes, absolutely. It's so easy to do.
Mm-hmm. So, Courtney, can you tell us where else we can find you on the web?
Absolutely. So, of course, you can find me on my website at coachmecourtney.com, and that's Courtney with a K. You can also find me on Instagram at Coach Me Courtney, and soon you'll be able to find me on YouTube at Coach Me Courtney as well. So I'm excited to roll that out later this fall. So stay tuned for that. But Coach Me Kourtney everywhere, and it's Kourtney with a K.
Yes, ma'am. And then also for anyone who's listening who is currently in a coupleship and wants to start working with her, if you go to her website and you sign up for any service or package, we have a special discount for you. You will get 10%
Yes.
off any service or package by putting in the code BGH.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sheena. This has been great.